Today, down goes Izzy. Also, UFC 312 is upon us, and honestly, we're not going to touch anything on this card but the and the main event. And we're also going to talk about Down Goes Izzy. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we are here to go over Down Goes Izzy, as well as UFC 312, which goes down this weekend in Australia. So, I wanted to, first off, UFC Saudi Arabia, in my opinion, had a couple of good moments, but it wasn't the most action-packed card. Wasn't the most action-packed card. Shout out to MVP. He goes out there, he defeats Shira Bullet in the co-main event. But what I really wanted to touch upon, if you will, the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia, because it leads into the main event of UFC 312. So, let's get into it. In the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia, Israel Adesanya gets knocked out, dropped, and finished by Nasruddin Imaev. Now, I picked Israel Adesanya to win this fight. Anyone that's been watching my channel for a while or for a long time knows I'm not a big Izzy fan. I've always said I've respected his fighting ability, but I've just never really been a fan of the guy. So, with that being said, but I had picked him to beat Nasruddin because I just felt like he was the more skilled fighter overall. But, what do you want to say? Izzy, he looked good in that, he looked good in the first round. I didn't really see anything that I would be like this was a hole in his game or anything like that. And then Nasruddin accidentally pokes Izzy in the eye. Izzy pauses for a moment, then kind of waves it off. And after waving it off, he does a slight stance switch to kind of, reset himself. And wham! Nasruddin catches him with a devastating right hand. Clean right hand. Clean right to the jaw. Stowed him in the jaw, if you know that term. You know what I'm saying? Cracked him. Izzy falls backward up against the fence on the ground. And, Imaev swarms him, gets him up out of there. My point for pitting these two things together, being the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia, as we go into the main event of UFC 312, in which we will see Steel Knox, Dricus, Plessis step in the octagon in a rematch to defend his middleweight championship of the world against former champion Sean Strickland. The reason why these two main events intersect is it's just a funny thing, man. Mixed martial arts is a trip. Because when you're on your way out, you're on your way down, you on your way down. You know what I'm saying? Israel Adesanya, regarded, as I said in my preview to this fight, top two middleweights of all time. Him and Anderson Silva. In my opinion, I give Anderson the nod, but Izzy's right there at number two. And he is at a point now where huge fans of his are calling for retirement. So with that being said, his fan base, a lot of people that really ride with Adesanya are calling for his retirement. So you have a man that's on his way down and he's on his way out of the sport. Not saying he's done, but that's the trajectory, right? We've already hit the peak. We're now going to the valley. You know what I'm saying? A man that's on his way down and on his way out of the sport, 1 week later is about to be eclipsed by two men that are on the precipice of launching their careers to the next level And both of them, in a way, made a name off Israel Adesanya. I give you I give you a second to ponder that. So what I'm saying is that Sean Strickland, back before he challenged for the title, back when he was about to fight Alex Pereira at the same UFC event as Israel Adesanya, they had a press conference in which, for a brief moment, Sean Strickland became a fan favorite. And this is not maybe not the beginning, but this is when really those of us who didn't like Adesanya, we were like, finally, someone is calling this dude out for the weirdness that he constantly portrays. You know what I'm saying? The weirdness that is him. Sean Strickland had so many moments, or a few moments, I guess I should say, more of a few, I'm not going to exaggerate, in that press conference in which he had Izzy nailed. Like he had him dead to rights on a few points, and Izzy didn't really have any comebacks. This was the beginning, one of the first times that people were like, okay, I don't really like Sean Strickland's politics. I don't like what he says about different groups of people, different genders of people, so on and so forth. But when he had Izzy dead to rights, I was down with that. You know what I'm saying? When he was making fun of his nails and, you know what I'm saying all this wild stuff, I was feeling him there. That was the beginning of people kind of starting to like Sean Strickland for just speaking his mind and being truthful and seeing beyond the fake coolness that Izzy was trying to portray. And this was also the beginning of people starting to see what those of us had been seeing since the build up to the Kelvin Gastelum fight. This dude was lame, bruh. This dude was not it. You know what I'm saying? He could fight really good. You can't take that away from him. But he was just a lame individual that a bunch of folks that, in a way might never have gotten the spotlight, never been there in the spotlight. And I'm not saying I've ever been in the spotlight, but it doesn't really matter to me. And a lot of people, they crave that their whole life and just wanted to be that. Those were generally the types that fell head over heels for this dude. With that being said, you got Sean Strickland, who would also later in his career go out there and had the performance of a lifetime, where in a fight that the entire world picked Israel Adesanya to defend his middleweight championship, Sean Strickland shocks the world, goes out there and punks Izzy on live television, on pay-per-view. Goes out there and made him look like he just wasn't in his same league. And then at the end of the 5th round is calling him out, yelling at him, throwing curses at him. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get Izzy in the last 10 to 15 seconds of the fight to do anything, to give him his shot. Like, swing on me now. Do it right now. And Izzy folded and wilted like the lame I always knew he was. And that was the end of that fight. And Sean Strickland is your new middleweight champion of the world. Now, while this was going on, the fight that was supposed to take place, but still Knox, Dricus du Plessis, pulled out of it due to a foot injury sustained previously in his fight against Robert the Reaper Whittaker. Dricus du Plessis was scheduled to fight Israel Adesanya, or at least the UFC was trying to make that fight. I shouldn't say it was scheduled. They were trying to make that. And Izzy, not wanting to just sit out and wait, trying to be boastful, he's the champion, he shouldn't have to wait, so on and so forth. He's like, well, I'm going to fight somebody, so I choose Sean Strickland. Shouldn't have did that. You shouldn't have did that. F around and find out. Made fun of his fighting style, his stances, his twitchy motions. You shouldn't have did that. Sean Strickland goes in there and does work. Gets Izzy up out of there. You know what I'm saying? He wins by a 5-round decision, but got him up out of there. You know what I'm saying? But prior to that, the reason why they were trying to have the Dricus du Plessis Israel Adesanya fight was all of the bad blood between both of these men, between Dricus and between Izzy, over who is the real African, and you don't really reside in Nigeria. You reside in New Zealand, and so on and so forth. It's back and forth, back and forth. You know. So what ends up happening? Sean Strickland wins the middleweight championship, and Dricus du Plessis goes out there and has one hell of a fight with Dricus du Plessis. One hell of a fight. A fight that's still argued about to this day on who should have won. I personally scored it 3-2 for Dricus du Plessis, but some people believe Sean Strickland should have won that fight. Nevertheless, great fight, and Dricus du Plessis captures the middleweight championship of the world, and would then go on to fight his arch nemesis, Israel Adesanya, in which he defeats, chokes out, still knocks, chokes out Israel Adesanya in the 4th round. Makes him tap. Doesn't put him to sleep. Makes the man tap. Had to tap. You know what I'm saying? Lost his zip code in Africa at that point. No, I'm just playing. But, and Dricus du Plessis, who was really inserted in a lot of conversations at the top of the middleweight division because of his willingness to engage with Adesanya verbally, something that a lot of people wouldn't really do. He then goes out there, after all the bad blood, after everything, he taps the man, then as it shows respect to him, very humble. Check out a previous video that I did in my year-end wrap-up of 2024 where I really discussed this fight. And he really made himself a huge name in the middleweight division by beating this man. So now, in the aftermath of Israel Adesanya, who is lost to both men in the main event of UFC 312, Israel Adesanya was just knocked out, and his own fans are calling for him to retire, as well as the rest of us, because we don't really like the dude. Shout out to him, though. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to kick him while he's down. But people are calling for this man's retirement. And this weekend, if Dricus du Plessis goes out there and defeats Sean Strickland, he's not in the conversation as the greatest at middleweight, but he's leveling up. He goes on to the next level, because that would be twice that he beat the man that beat Israel Adesanya, as well as he beat Israel Adesanya, as well as he beat Robert the Reaper Whittaker. So, then Sean Strickland. What if Sean Strickland goes out there and defeats Dricus du Plessis? He then goes out there and beats the man that also beat Israel Adesanya, as well as he beat Israel Adesanya himself. And he levels up. Very, very interesting. With that being said, shout out to Nasruddin. You know what I'm saying? We'll see. I mean, he's still on a huge win streak. I definitely don't see him getting the next middleweight title shot. I think that's probably going to go to Khamzat Chimaev. But nevertheless, shout out to Nasruddin, because he's right in line. He won't be next, but he's in line. Shout out to him. Biggest win in his career. I'm glad he put Izzy away. It was awesome to see. Shout out to him. Now let's move on to UFC 312, where in the main event, Dricus du Plessis will step in the octagon with Sean Strickland. My pick is Dricus du Plessis. I think Dricus du Plessis goes out there and gets it done. I think even if it goes to a 5-round decision, I think he does it far more convincingly. I think he is really going to really take Sean Strickland to task. With that being said, I'd say Sean Strickland wins at least 1 round for sure. For sure. A good solid round. Because from what I've seen after rewatching their first fight, I really believe that Dricus was somewhat coasting during the first round and coasting through about half of the second round. You know what I'm saying? To conserve that energy. And then he put that pace on Sean Strickland the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th round. Even though Sean Strickland went out there and tried to really, really make a stand towards the end of the fight. But I got Dricus du Plessis. I think he goes out there. I think if this goes to a 5-round decision, I think he's probably going to win 4-1 or an extremely convincing 3-2. I feel like regardless of Sean Strickland making these upgrades, having Alex Pereira in his corner, or the upgrades he's claiming, he's claiming he can win in there with world-class kickboxers, including Alex Pereira, to really try to go in there and really flesh out the style to defeat Dricus. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think Steel Knox, Dricus du Plessis is made of something different. I'd also like to speak on real quick. I was watching the Outlaw Picks podcast with Dan Hardy and his wife Veronica, right? And it was wild to see. He wasn't like trashing him, but somewhat he was a disdain that Dan Hardy had for the styles, the fighting styles of Dricus and of Sean. And it's like, I see this happen a lot. I see this happen a lot on MMA Fighting's content, certain producers on that show. And, the thing is, man, Israel Adesanya and Dan Hardy was so heated that both of these men, both of them now, beat Izzy. And he just was like he was having almost a slight meltdown in a way that he couldn't grasp that these two men could beat Israel Adesanya. Now, granted, it is shocking, but in a way, dude, give both of these men their respect. Put some respect on their names, you know what I'm saying? Dude, at the end of the day, these fighters that play chess, and Israel Adesanya is a chess-playing fighter, right? One thing about these chess-playing fighters, in mixed martial arts, you can't be the best chess-playing fighter in the world and continue to win forever. In boxing, you can, because in boxing, there aren't as many variables, right? There aren't as many variables, as many ways that a fight could go wrong and you could completely lose it out of things out of your control, as opposed to sheer skill level. In boxing, you have your fighters like Canelo, and it doesn't matter who you throw in there against him. The only person that's beat him recently was a man that was so much bigger than him. You know what I'm saying? He went up so many weight classes and ran into Beevil. You know what I'm saying? And back in the day, it was Floyd Mayweather, who was a better chess player than Canelo. And as Canelo's career continued to level up, he then became that chess player, which is why he goes out there and disposes of people. It's the same thing with the man he's about to fight, being Bud Crawford. You know what I'm saying? Terrence Crawford. Dude, in MMA, chess players can only last so long. And Israel Adesanya is a chess player. And eventually, there are so many variables in a fight. You could be piecing this guy up an entire fight, and he catches you with some sort of a calf kick and deadens the nerve in your leg, and the next thing you know, the fight is out of your control. Which is somewhat what Adesanya claimed happened in the first Pereira fight. For all of his chess playing that he did for 5 rounds straight against Alex Pereira, Alex deadens that nerve in his leg, slows him up for just a moment, and Alex takes advantage of a stifled Izzy, and gets him up out of there, bro. And the same way with Dricus du Plessis, Izzy was looking fairly good in that fight. But, he tried to have his Max Holloway moment and point to the ground. Dricus du Plessis took advantage of a stumble. As Izzy falls back, Dricus du Plessis gets it to the ground, immediately takes his back and chokes him out. You know what I'm saying? Chess playing fighters, while we look up to them, we marvel at their style. You have to respect these other fighters that don't play chess, that possess an extra gear that the chess playing fighter doesn't possess because he's playing chess. He's not going to go berserker mode. He's not going to go deep, deep, deep down heart mode and wing it to try to win the fight. You know what I'm saying? That's not what he's going to do. He's not going to Leon Edwards just out of nowhere, I'm going to roll the dice and pull this crazy high kick and win the fight. They're not going to do that because they play chess. And you play chess long enough in mixed martial arts and wham, wham, bitty, bam, boom. And you up out of there, bro. And you got to respect that. When I look at a fighter like Anderson Silva, he was not a chess-playing fighter. As, Dan Hardy kept speaking on Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva is probably my favorite fighter of all time. It's hard for me to pick a favorite. I got like a top 5, so to speak. I love GSP, he's on my wall. I love John Jones, he's on my wall. I love Anderson Silva. But Anderson Silva, when I first got into mixed martial arts, Anderson Silva made you believe things differently. But when I look back at Anderson Silva's greatest moments, Anderson Silva, while he did have outstanding stand-up, outstanding striking, and he would bait guys in, he wasn't a chess-playing fighter. Because Anderson Silva had cat-quick reflexes. Way beyond Izzy. Izzy is cat-quick, no doubt. No doubt his reflexes are on point. But Izzy plays chess. Anderson went out there, and it wasn't about playing chess. It was about waiting for his moment and then capitalizing on him having faster reflexes, being cat-quick, and having that instinct to go out there and finish a guy and get him out of there. If you watch his fight with Dan Henderson had so many moments. He's putting it on Anderson, and Anderson saw that moment, and he got him up out of there, bro. Anderson was more cut from that cloth. He saw that moment with Chael Sonnen, and he got him up out of there. He went for it. And then in the rematch, he for sure saw many moments, and he got him up out of there. He wasn't playing chess with Chael. He wouldn't get ready to take all that time. You know what I'm saying? And give Chael a chance to come back at the end, like it's happened to Izzy numerous times now. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't doing that, bro. And even when Izzy fought Anderson, in my opinion, this is a diminished Anderson Silva. Izzy should have been able to get him up out of there, and he couldn't. You know what I'm saying? He had to go to a decision with him. And that's what I mean, man. I hate when people have disdain for the fighting style of Sean Strickland and for Dricus du Plessis. Because for your Dan Hardys and for your certain producers over on MMAfighting.com, you can sit around and marvel at people hitting pads all you want and the perfect technique, the perfect structured jabs, the perfect structured 1-2s and straights and hooks and everything else. And you can do that all day. And I love how for 3 rounds he just set him up and baited him right into this finish. I know. I just loved it. It was amazing to see. I marveled at it. But at the end of the day, both of those dudes beat your king. Both of them beat Israel Adesanya. Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis. While their styles aren't pretty, their styles aren't perfect, their styles are effective. And if your chess-playing king was good enough, he should have got them both up out of there. And he didn't. He didn't. And Eugene Behrman can go out here and talk about, the fight with Dricus. We didn't train. We didn't put in the work that was needed and da-da-da-da-da. And, all of that. But it doesn't matter, bro. Both of these men put your king down. Dan Hardy. They put your king down with their style. So put some respect on their name, bro, because it ain't always about being technical. It ain't always about the chess playing. Try to play chess with Dricus du Plessis if you want, and you'll see what happens, you know what I'm saying? This ain't the Dricus when he first came into the UFC. This ain't that same dude, man. This dude is forged by iron now. I'm not trying to glaze him, but I'm just speaking what I see, man. Dricus du Plessis goes out there. I believe he defeats Sean Strickland and retains his middleweight championship of the world. Let's move on to the co-main event, which is actually the only other fight I'm going to talk about on UFC 312. Tatiana Suarez finally challenges Zhang Weili for strawweight championship of the world. In my opinion, I think the UFC did the math. The matchmakers did the math because Tatiana already had another fight booked previously, and then she had to pull out of that fight due to injury, and then up came this fight. I feel like the UFC was like, we can't keep rolling the dice on this girl, bro. This girl does not stay healthy. She's somewhat fragile, and I know she's been through a lot in her life. She's a strong, hardened woman. Shout out to her. I know she dealt with some issues with her health and cancer and everything else, and she beat all of that. Shout out to her. But it's hard for her to make it in the octagon. She has no strength of schedule because she can't stay consistent going into the octagon. Her body fails her where her mind doesn't. And I think the UFC was like, man, it's either now or never. We got to throw her in there. We got to do the title fight now. Because if we don't, I don't know if she's ever going to be able to make it to the octagon. Let's just do it now. Zhang Weili didn't have anybody in the folds. It seemed like for a while Zhang Weili was teasing she was going to, go up to 125 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. When I look at this fight, part of me kind of believes, Weili is older now. I believe she's about 35 or 36. And I believe that original skill set that Tatiana Suarez had, and then she added in a level of just ferocious striking. Not the most technical, but like I just talked about with the last fight, it got the job done. In her last two fights, striking looked a lot better. I would probably pick Tatiana Suarez, but I'm not going to because I'm not even going to believe, even if she says that she is, I'm not going to believe that she's coming into this fight healthy. Now, she might go out there and put on a show, and it might be enough to get Weili out of there. But every time she's scheduled for a fight, the fight never even goes on when it's originally scheduled. It always has to be postponed or backed out for a little while because of another injury. And so I'm not even going to believe she's coming into this fight without injuries. And I'm not sure what type of forcing the UFC did because they're probably sick of it. They're sick of booking this woman and she not making it to the octagon. So I'm not sure. I think Zhang Weili is a force. I mean, obviously, Zhang Weili, you can watch footage of her hitting the pads, and she's looking solid. The hands are looking crisp. I think her wrestling was really outstanding in her last two fights. Of course, what are you going to say about her fight with Carla Esparza? But still, her fight with Jan in her last fight, that wrestling kind of saved her in a few moments. But I'm going to go along with Zhang Weili, even though I think Tatiana Suarez clearly is the more decorated wrestler and is the better wrestler. And, Tatiana Suarez arguably is the better athlete. But at this point in her career, after this many injuries, I think Weili has leveled that playing field, as well as Weili is an outstanding athlete herself. But I mean, people forget, man. People forget, man. I feel like if you saw Tatiana Suarez back in the day, this was the female Khabib in a lot of ways. So that's why I say she was the better athlete, but I just don't know about now. I got Zhang Weili to go out there and defend the strawweight championship of the world this Saturday. So that's it, man. That wraps it up. That ties it in a bow. Down with Izzy. In with Dricus du Plessis. I believe he defeats Sean Strickland this Saturday, and I beat Zhang Weili defeats Tatiana Suarez. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know your picks. Who you got in the main event and the co-main event this Saturday. Did I get it wrong? Let me know, man. That's the point of this channel. The point of this channel is it Matt or is it fact? You let me know who you got in the main and the co-main event this Saturday. Let me know what you think. And once again, I do want to thank you for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.